This point, the way I am today, this was the one that broke me.
Losing your daughter
was the one that really got me broken. When I mean broken, like sometimes I just sit maybe in my bathroom, because that's one of the places, according to Spiff of the Johnstons, that's where I wear my thinking cap. So I just find myself sitting there. I don't need to cry, the tears just kept rolling down my cheek, and what am I doing? What next? What am I going to do? That was my number one praise singer. That was my number one cheerleader. That was my prayer partner. You know. I think this is the first time I am sane. When I mean sane as in sane, not having anything like alcohol in my system at all since she passed on to do an interview. You know. And sometimes when I'm invited for some functions, I get myself knocked off because I don't know. I just look at people knowing fully well that no, it's okay, don't worry. They just have they don't know I know by the way they stare at me. Should I just tell her sorry? I'm that type that, 1 minute it's all right. Oh, come on. I didn't want my makeup to get 1 minute I can be like this and the next minute, so I just hide under alcohol but now I remember those messy moments, beautiful moments, and I know she never liked it, even though she knows that there were some things I don't talk about. I don't like talking about, and I just behave as if all is well. She knows. So I just had to go back to God and just tell him that you have to take this away because it's almost messing me up. At this point, they were...
All right, thanks for staying with us. Now, according to the World Health Organization, depression is a common illness worldwide, with an estimated 3.8% of population affected, including 5.0% among adults and 5.7% among adults older than 60 years. Now, approximately 280 million people in the world have depression. Depression is different from usual mood fluctuations and short-lived emotional responses to challenge in everyday life, especially when recurrent and with moderate or severe intensity. Depression may become a serious health condition. It can cause the affected person to suffer greatly and function poorly at work, at school, and in the family. At its worst, depression can lead to suicide. Now, Ada Ame had lost several family members. If you had listened to her story, most recently her only daughter, whom she gave birth at the age of 14. Her daughter had died in October 2020. The actress, of course, I don't think she recovered after that death because she also died in Warri after collapsing on the 17th of July at the age of 48. Of course, she suffered from mental health issues prior to her death and was very expressive about her condition. Now, this story is indeed touching, and we are asking and we're discussing depression today. We're asking, managing depression, especially as a public figure or you're in the public eye, right? How do you manage depression? Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-4663. You can also tweet at us at WaysShowAfrica1 with the hashtag WaysShow. This is an interesting conversation, Noma. So,
takes us back in time, doesn't it?
What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are very heavy because we've lost so many people, both the ones we know directly and people that, and in this context, celebrities, people of value, people of repute, young, old, to this same, just hearing that statistics of 280 million people in the world. Wow, that is probably the whole of Nigeria and then some suffering with this illness. It tells, or it's very instructive, it just tells you that this is not something to joke with. There are lots of people that are dealing with depression that are not even aware that they are dealing with depression. And there are lots of family members, friends, colleagues, strangers that have probably the one moment to just pay attention to the fact that this person is not normal, is not in their normal state of mind, or has some questionable behavior. This person is walking contrary to who they are, or this person is withdrawing, or this person is no longer exuding like a behavior that they normally will exude. And it is something that is no longer something that should be left in the shadows. It's not something that people should be ashamed of. It's not something that people should bully people about. That's another thing. Because somebody is dealing with something does not mean that they cannot rise above that situation. So when we begin to pay attention as human beings, when you check up on people, when you ask questions, you might just be saving a life. You might just be doing something that can pull somebody out of a dark place. And that's why for me, it's very, very personal. I know that, there are different levels, right? I've had a bit of what it can look like. And I said, this is not a good place to be. So I can even imagine people who have lived with it for years and months and things like that. It's something that we need to really seriously pay attention to, whether you are a popular person or you're a stranger on the road or you're a family member or your friend. Everybody needs help and everybody needs to receive treatment if actually they are diagnosed with depression, and support is very, very key.
All right, so let me bring in our guest. Priscilla Benjamin-Olaoye is a mental fitness expert of over a decade. She is the lead therapist at Waterbrooks Clarity Solutions and an employee assistant program practitioner providing psychological support services to corporate organizations. She has led many interventions efforts in helping human life find his or her highest self by rising above complex behavioral issues that undermine performance in the workplace. Priscilla is a TV personality as well as a radio host of the foremost mental health program, Your Mind and You with Priscilla, where she consistently unveils or unravels the concept of personality and self-actualization, especially in crisis management. And she's joined us live from the US. Thank you so much, Priscilla, for joining us. Hello, Priscilla, are you there? Oh, did we lose her? Priscilla, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure being here.
All right, so Priscilla, you heard a little bit of our banter on this conversation, right? This is actually a tough conversation to have because, first of all, when I listened to that interview of Adame, there are some things I jotted down about, substance dependence. You see, when somebody is going through a crisis as depression, you then start to birth other children. You become an addict, you become withdrawn, you bottle up, you even when you have people around you.
You throw caution to the wind.
And again, sometimes you just act like you're strong, right? You try to put out this, I am happy, you try to like a facade that this is, just because you're trying to keep up, that image. But, help me understand this conversation around depression, especially when you're in the eye of the public. How do we even start the conversation around managing the situation around depression?
Depression is something that is very popular, yet very much unknown, because there's a lot of comparisons as to what people see one person as other person. And again, any topic around mental health is still something that people are trying to get to know better. So it just makes it very difficult for people to have that total knowledge of what this is. For educational purposes, let me say first of all that depression is a mood disorder. Depression is something that basically does affect your mood, but also has the capacity to affect your thoughts, your feelings, and your behavior. Your thoughts, your feelings, and your behavior. Now, it's sad to know that at least 1 in 6 people would experience a type of depression throughout their lifetime. That's something that we generally are sad to announce. But we've had so many people self-diagnose themselves, saying things like, "Oh, I've got depression," forgetting that depression is not just experiencing the symptom of sadness. And I think I did hear you mention that during your introduction. I could go over the symptoms of depression, but it's also important for me to explain here that there are different types of depression. And it depends on the type of depression that somebody is going through. That's what determines how they present, what the general view of those observing them would be. But majorly, I do agree with you, based on what you said initially before asking me that question, that a lot of people that experience some of these depressive symptoms either ignore it, numb it with alcohol or any other psychoactive drug, or sometimes deny that it does exist. For some other people, is the fact that they're ashamed of their emotions, forgetting that there is nothing to be ashamed about. For other people, they try to externalize their lives. They try to live through other people, right? Rather than, experiencing and verbalizing what they're feeling. They would rather, just not want to spend time with themselves, but would rather just live vicariously through other people.
So this is actually interesting because sadly, when we start to talk like this, we're going to be, we have to go fast because of the time is really short, right? So in your assessment of depression, I mean, there are rumors around Genevieve, but we don't want to dwell on it until she's able to come out openly to say that this is what I'm going through, right? Do you think it is actually tougher for someone that is in the eye of the public, to live through the depression state, or it is easier for them? Because, I mean, if you watch Adame, she did a lot of videos on social media, posting a lot of videos, and coming out openly to say this is what she's going through. She had, I mean, at some point she did a video about losing a particular job and her life was being threatened because she was not in the mental state to be able to deliver on that job, right? So, I mean, do you think as when you go through depression in the eye of the public, is it easier or is much tougher so people can understand and empathize better, when people come out to say this is what they're going through?
To be honest with you, Ua, there is nothing easy to go through the public, be it depression, be it any other medical condition. Why? Because your life is consistently on the radar. Even for people who do not have any sort of condition, think about you just posting something about the weather. You would always find somebody in the comment section who would say something very derogatory or something abusive about what you said, because we're constantly judging other people. Now to your question, I believe that either you're celebrating or you're not a celebrity, you have a private life and public life. Ada Ame, for example, said something that I picked up as someone who is in the field of mental health in one of her interviews. She said she initially was taking treatment in Benin because of stigmatization. And then it was only recently that she began to take treatment in Lagos. So for her, I do not believe that, being in that state of vulnerability, she probably would not want to expose some of her symptoms during the psychotic phase. That is when you're acting in ways that is beyond your control. For example, when the brain chemicals kicking and take over, and your thoughts is impaired, your judgment is impaired, your memory is impaired, and, depending on the type of depression that she's dealing with. If, for example, she was dealing with major depression, there will be times where, she's fine and times where she's not fine. So times when she's not fine, I doubt, if she would want to show that part. And that's not because that has to do with every individual. A lot of people can only deal with the strong part of you. And I put that on my page. So I think sometime last that I said in that post, I said, my life is a mix of strength and struggle. You see a lot of people who are only willing to celebrate you when you're doing well, when you're fine, when everything seems to be going rosy for you. But when it really becomes stuck, when you really need people, that's when a lot of people just feel that they do not want to associate with weakness or with struggle. So it has nothing with being a celebrity. Is the fact that people do not celebrate weakness as a time in our lives that is mandatory.
Wow. Priscilla, I'm concerned, when you were talking, the thought came to me that do people actually deal with depression based on their personality? Because like Uwa, you mentioned, she was posting videos online, so even though she was dealing, it seemed like she was doing okay with what she was dealing with. But then we now hear that she's gone. There's some people who will go off, like we're not sure, like in Genevieve's case, what the true situation is. So does personality help people determine whether or not they will succeed in managing or dealing
or
overcoming depression?
Beautiful question, Norma. And yes, let me use myself. So I have all of this knowledge. I have all of this knowledge about difference between mental health and mental illness. Now, what you know has nothing to do sometimes with how you deal with situations when you're in them. So I had done quite a lot with myself. I've done quite a lot with life. I seem to, be on this high roller coaster as to achieving my dream, all of the things I wanted. But there came a time where I started struggling with what I really think I should have done with what I think I should have done with myself. And I really felt like I was failing myself. And because that was triggered with being in a new environment, being isolated from my support system and all of that. And at that point, I really felt weak. I really felt vulnerable. I really felt like I was letting myself down, starting all over again and all of that. And at that point, I knew that it was not about what I about the fact it was about the fact that I needed to do something with that valley. And the moment I realized that, I sought for help. I knew that I didn't have strength to carry on at that point. And anybody who saw me at that time would think that everything is fine. And we talk about high functioning depression, which is a layman term in any ways. It's not something that is diagnosed, formally. So anybody who probably saw me at that time would feel everything's fine, but no, everything was not right. So for every single person who probably feels, that they are not doing well, it's important for them to identify that they may not have enough strength to get themselves out of that valley, and then they have to. So what did I begin to do? I started to seek information as to what I can do better. And that was because I had to speak to someone who was also knowledgeable and who was also an expert in this field. And together we navigated the water. And now, the much better place. But how willing are we to really be open to seeking help? But because we have stigmatized seeking help, somebody could look at me and say, "Oh, you shouldn't go through this with all of what you know about mental health, and also because you're professionally trained." But that's not true. You have to daily, immerse yourself with, taking those practical steps. Involve, or no, what's the word now? I want you to incorporate daily habits that help your mental status. Identify your stressors. Identify your support system. Know when your tank is empty. Recognize your triggers. Recognize your stressors. Recognize the lifestyle or certain diets or certain people that just generally drain you out. The more you pay attention to yourself, the better you get at, getting out of that valley when you get into it.
Okay, Priscilla, how do whether family members, friends, how can people become more sensitive and pay attention to people around them that might be going through, whether they're aware of it or even things to look out for and be sensitive towards in helping people who are living with depression find help? What can they readily begin to do in order to help people in this situation?
Awesome. So I would, generally just jump into that question by first of all saying that there are some times that you don't even know any, the person close to you. However, sometimes you could experience changes in their behavior. Sometimes, so behavior, for example, like them wanting to not getting as involved as general become. You could see personality changes. And to your previous question about how personality does affect, how people respond. Yes, certain people have, personalities that are able to, withstand pressure. Some do not have it. So if you begin to observe any deviation from what the normal pattern of this person is, then you should probably get concerned. But not everybody is trained to see. But of course, always listen to your intuition. But for you as a support system of a friend or a family, begin to observe changes in that, in their lifestyle. Say, for example, their diet. Is this person beginning to eat more, or person is beginning to eat less? Is there significant weight gain or significant weight loss? You want to observe that person's sleep. Is the person sleeping more, or the person is sleeping less? Right? You want to observe if you want to begin to observe the person's physical activity. Is the person is the person going on a hyper mood, or the person is just generally inhibited when it comes to being interested in certain activities? Begin to observe the person's level of forgetfulness. You see that people who are beginning to experience depression begin to forget things very easily. So the short-term memory is affected. You observe the level of concentration. Is this person easily distracted? Is this person easily lost in thought? You want to pay attention. So the first thing to do is really seeing the person with you. But lately, we're lost in our own worlds. We're lost on our phones. We're lost in the world of social media. We're lost doing other things and being attention to other people, aside the very people who are really close to us.
So,
Just being there
okay,
for the other person.
because I'm
and
happy
really
that you
seeing
touched
them.
on it, Priscilla. I am happy you touched on it because we're in the world of social media where it seems like the whole world must know what is happening in your bedroom, right? And, you know, at some point you get completely immersed in that and you're lost in all of the activities of social media and you forget to
Believe it's
leave.
reality.
You forget to live your life, right? And this is the reality. So, I mean, when people take breaks off social media now, it's like you just committed a sin. You know, people will tell you, I want to take a break, and it's like, why are you taking a break and all of that? How are you going off social media? So I wanted to ask, right, because there was something she made mention of, that because again, when you're going through depression, you then have, in the midst of that, you then lose a loved one, right? It's almost like a double whammy, right? And people are not even able to say the right words. Like, we don't even know what to say because she said it. I mean, that moved me to tears. Like, they looked at her, they didn't even know what to say to her, right? Because these are the things that we are also helpless, right? Because even some of us have what we're dealing with. It's just that maybe our own is not as the same magnitude as what you are dealing with. But, you know, hey, social media already is a platform that is designed for depression if you're not able to manage your expectations for yourself as a human being, because you begin to subconsciously compare yourself, see where you are, see where other people are, or where you assume other people are, because social media is an assumption of a reality, is not really the reality, right? So how do we begin to manage in the midst of social media and all of that, manage that you are able to at least shield yourself enough to stay sane and meet all of the craziness going on in the world?
I'm so elated to hear that question. And I've really been itching, to get to that point. Honestly speaking, Ua, we do not realize that as much as we thought, social media is not that all bad. It's not about the tool, it's about what you do with it. So I personally, for example, had to consciously begin to follow pages that added to me rather than pages that depleted from me. And that's what I want every single person who is listening or watching to know, that you need to pay attention to certain pages that drain you. If there are certain things, for example, that makes you compare yourself with other people, stay away from it. Comparison is a thief of joy. A lot of times is when we are empty. That's when we're able to really get the strength to go on. So basically what I'm saying is that there are think of it as a spin wheel. And I'll talk about, we usually would refer to that as the wellness wheel. And because of time, I would like to emphasize on the one that mostly impacts us. I did share in one of my posts, I think 2 weeks ago, that we are spirits having a human experience. So a lot of times we want to care for ourselves. We want to wear good clothes. We want to wear good shoes. We want to, look good, just because we need that feel good experience and feedback from other people. So that's the physical, but we neglect who we are on the inside. Follow pages that feed your spirit. Understand that if the more empty you are, mentally and emotionally, the easily drained you become. And the less, capacity you have to fight stressors. So consider, feeding yourself with pages that add to you. Consider improving on the quality of your sleep. It's not how long you sleep, it's how well you sleep. What's the quality of your sleep? A lot of people are owing sleep a lot of debt. That's the truth, So consider investing in sleeping better. If there are things that usually would, aid your sleep, that's okay. I'm not asking you to get addicted to sleep pills. You want to also pay attention to certain diets that help to improve what we call your serotonin level. There are certain diets that, usually just improve the brain chemical that regulates our mood. You want to get involved in activities that keep you going. The more redundant you are, the more you're not doing anything. Or maybe when you are doing monotonous activities, you would find out that you are not as motivated. When you feel that way, just take a walk, climb upstairs and go down, do activities, and you see it generally just improves your mood. My message in totality is that the better you invest in lifestyle changes, the better you become. Look at things that you can invest in, considering, the value of these activities rather than engaging or investing in things that generally depletes you.
Okay, so we have a few comments. Norma, maybe you go first.
Okay.
And just take go ahead.
All right, so I have this comment from Austin in Delta State, and he says, depression leads to mental illness. Alda was posting those videos, knocking herself off with alcohol. These red flags that family members and close friends could have picked up and rally support and get professional advice for her. We need to speak out to close confidants when going through tough and challenging times. Adieu, Ada. Thank you, Austin, for your comment.
So, good evening, my dear beautiful sisters, or what are you saying? #ways managing depression as a public figure. We need to know and investigate what caused depression before we can tackle or prevent it. The case of late Ada Amesh, she passed through what is more than depression. Someone who lost six of her siblings, her father, her daughter, I think three of her, I think there were 7 people, or, 6 of her siblings, her father and her daughter, yeah. It was too much for her to bear and take, to the extent that she died in the process. We can manage depression by seeking for thorough counseling from someone experienced, and that person can make that depression not go to any level or even prevent it from happening. In a nutshell, depression can be avoided if well handled with the right people around us. My name is Daniel Ilof, your Ways regular fan. Thank you so much, Daniel. So, Priscilla, as we wrap up the conversation, right, what would we say that, if you had a few nuggets or something to just share? So this depression conversation, you cannot really say do X, Y, Z, because depression is unique.
And there are different kinds
even
of depression
yes
as well.
It's unique. Even for me now, I might go through something now, and maybe the next time I'm going through it is a completely different experience, right? There's no one size fit all solution for it. But I like the fact that you've given us a bit of generalization on signs to look out for, right? But how do we do this that we don't keep losing people? Because again, what do we do if somebody says, oh, I just lost a loved one? How do we go about it? Because again, let's not forget that the environment already is depressing enough. Mm-hmm. Nigeria puts you in a state of, you are even afraid to go and ask what is the matter, because you are not even sure you can solve that person's problem. So you just rather avoid it, you stay away from it. But I mean, there's still going to be a way out of this situation. How do we start to probably condition ourselves to begin to just, just be that person that might just be the one to save a day or save someone's life at the end of the day?
So the first thing I would say is value your mental state above all else. The value that you place on your mental state would determine what level of investment you will put into it. For example, the fact that I know that if I do not take a bath every day, I would smell, that's the same way you should look at investing in your mental and emotional health, right? You must take deliberate steps to do that. Dealing with mental illness is not something that motivational speakers can fix. We oftentimes think that maybe if we listen to some motivational talk, we would snap out of it. It's not something you can snap out of. It's something that you need to, get support from, like having somebody hold you by the hand and just look at what's unique to you. All right. So it's investing in it. And lastly, it's also about how much you want to regulate. And the first thing I would say is realize that it's okay to feel emotions. It's okay to feel angry. When you feel angry, all you need to do is pause and think of how to do it better. When you feel insecure, all you need to accept yourself. I always talk about unconditional self-acceptance. Don't shy away from your flaws and embrace your strengths. No, you have to accept yourself holistically. And do not, never compare your situation with the situation of somebody else, because you are not them and they are not you. Your uniqueness is unique to you. And investing in your mental and emotional health is not something is not something motivational speaking could, get you out of. And there is nothing wrong with finding people who are really trained. People are not as equipped as they should be. And that's why you have, people, investing in short courses that could help other people and help themselves. But when you ask someone, for example, to take an online course that has to do with mental health, people are not ready to do that. To the best of my capacity, I've helped as many people as possible, but I have observed people coming to my DM wanting me to be that big sister that could help them through a situation, but they're not ready to invest in really, taking the right steps. But they just want you to give them one counsel that will take all the problems away. But unfortunately, it's not that. You must be willing to invest time and resources into getting that help that you need.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Priscilla. I think it's been a fantastic conversation. Sadly, when we talk like this, we always run out of time, but I think you've really been helpful, and we're hoping to bring you back, because somebody's even saying, please, can you also consider the issue of grief and loss here to the discussion? I mean, we don't have time for that, but that is also in itself a major conversation to have. Handling grief, handling loss, right? But thank you so much, Priscilla Benjamin-Olaoye. Thank you, Norma, for joining us. Please do ensure you follow us on Instagram at PlusTvAfrica. You can interact with us further. Drop a comment, and more importantly, follow all our engagements on social media, like, share, and invite your families and friends to watch and follow the conversation. Now, if you missed today's quote, here it is again. When you're surrounded by all those people, it can be lonelier than when you are by yourself. You can be in a huge crowd, but if you don't feel like you can trust anyone or talk to anybody, you feel like you are alone, or you're really alone. This was from Fiona. We'll see you guys live at 8 p.m. tomorrow as we bring another great conversation to your screen. Enjoy.